Residents of nursing homes have rights under both federal and state law. So a lot of the times, a lot of our work is educating the facility staff that these are not just things that we came up with, things that'll make the resident feel good. These are rights that fall under the umbrella of federal and state law. And these includes grievances, admission agreements, medical conditions and treatment, and protection of residents' funds, transfers and discharge, and free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So a lot of the times, admission agreements, residents, they don't know what they're signing half of the time. They just know we need to be in here either due to a decline or an increase of care that's needed. And so they're signing things. Or you may have a family member who may want to get mom or dad into the facility to lighten the burden on their end. And so they're just quickly signing papers, not fully seeing what they're signing. And the facility, unfortunately, takes advantage of these residents with these admission agreements. So we spend a lot of our time going through documentation within the admission agreement to assure that the residents' rights are upheld properly. Another one that I want to highlight briefly is the protection of residents' funds. This is a big deal because let's paint a picture here. If son or family member drops mom or dad off to this facility, what happens to their funds? A lot of them have retirement pensions. Some of them are collecting SSI and things of that sort to pay for their stay inside of these nursing facilities. And a lot of times those outside parties, and a lot of times they're family members who are taking advantage of these residents' funds. They become the rep payee for these residents. They become the power of attorney, which gives them legal right in some sort to have say-so over both physical and financial. And they use the money at their own expense, leaving the residents neglected. And so a lot of the times we spend trying to find that individual who's done that to assure that this is not happening. Because remember, we want to make sure that these residents are having the utmost respect of dignity and respect. Next slide, please. Also, there's a continuance of the residents' rights. They have the choice of privacy, access to visitation, resident and family councils, also support and help of an ombudsman, access to their records, and most importantly, dignity and respect. So I'll just trickle down from the top. So choice of privacy. They have the ability to request privacy. They have the ability to tell anyone inside of a facility, I don't want you to have access to something. Now, is that respected all of the time? Probably not. And that's where we come in. Access to visitation. A lot of the times, the facility may not want a family member to come visit them, whether that's based off appearance or them being loud or obnoxious at chance. But at the end of the day, the resident has the right and the say-so under the state and federal law to have visitation from whoever they may choose. Resident councils and family councils. So this is a big one. We utilize a lot of our time trying to get these things initiated and started. So a family council / resident council is where the residents, they come together within a facility with no facility staff there to discuss the concerns that they may have and how they plan to execute that. Now, us as ombudsman, we love to participate in those, but being that the residents have the ability to have express wish, we are only able to participate if they invite us. So a lot of the times we try to form those relationships with the resident council president within the facility, or also through relationship building within facilities, finding someone who may exude certain characteristic traits who may be a good fit to be the resident council president. I mean, they always have support from the ombudsman. One thing that we look for when we go into these facilities, and I encourage you all, whenever you're visiting a loved one or just showing love to anyone inside a facility, that you look for an ombudsman poster. That is a state and federal law that they at least have 2 ombudsman posters inside of every facility. This is the resident's right to have access to us and to be able to contact us at any given time. So I encourage you all, if you don't see those inside of facilities, please give us a phone call and we'll assure that we'll get on top of that immediately. They also have access to their records, meaning medication disbursements, change of condition. A lot of the times, facility staff, they just go on and they think, you know, you're just here to receive this care and you don't need to have access to this, but indeed they do. And so if they request that, that's something that they need to have. Next slide, please. Skilled nursing facilities, we want to highlight that. So skilled nursing facilities, you'll hear us utilize a term called SNF, and that's just an acronym that we utilize for skilled nursing facilities. They provide 24-hour nursing care for residents that need significant assistance with activities of daily life. So I always put emphasis on significant assistance with activities for daily life. They also must have 24-hour nursing staff available at all times, and they are a licensed physician, supervises each resident's care, therapy needs, and rehabilitation services. So I do want to highlight the residents that need significant assistance. So this may look like individuals who may need help with medication disbursement and in taking that medication, assistance with that. Those who may need help eating their food. This is not an individual who just gets a tray and sits in front of them. They need help with that. Changing of clothing, changing of briefs, and also overall hygiene care. So that will fall under the umbrella for someone who may need these type of services. And a must is staff must be available at all times. I know that a lot of facilities have some difficulties with keeping up with full-time staff. So a lot of times they use outside third parties to do so. But there is a ratio that they must have based off the clientele that they have. And also their licensing party is the California Department of Public Health. So anytime you hear the word skilled nursing facility, knowing that their licensing party is a Department of Public Health. So if anybody out in the community, let's say you see something of concern pertaining to the health of the resident, whether that's be a misuse of their rights, verbal, financial, physical, etc., please contact us as the ombudsman. But we also encourage you guys to also do a report to the California Department of Public Health. And this is also an outside party that we work very closely with our nursing facilities. Next slide, please. So resident care facilities, you'll hear this term utilized, RCFEs. Again, that's just an acronym. And so what they do is they provide room and board, housekeeping, supervision of basic daily living activities for residents that do not require 24-hour nursing care, but can live on their own. So this is a big one. So a lot of times facilities may try to say, well, hey, we have an individual who's very vocal, very opinionated. They need to go to a lower level of care like an RCFE. That's not always the case. So we ask questions as such. Did a doctor or a physician sign off to say that this resident was evaluated and they have the ability to maintain on their own? Also, they are considered non-medical facilities, meaning there's no doctor on staff there. They have no social workers there, but they do have an administrator who oversees the functionality of the facility. And they're not required to have nurses, CNAs, and doctors on staff. So their licensing party will be community care licensing. So anytime you hear the word RCFE, just know if you have concerns or if you're visiting a family member or someone tells you about an issue that's happening inside of an RCFE, please feel free to call the ombudsman, for we will tackle that immediately. But also we encourage that everyone reach out to community care licensing to report that issue or concern that you may have also. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges, systematic issues that we see inside of all facilities. So things are not perfect in facilities. We get phone calls on a regular basis of individuals stating or asking, what facility should I send my mother or my dad to? That's not information we can divulge, but there are systematic issues inside of every facility. I've never seen any facility out of my 5 years here that is run perfectly. We also see staff turnover rates are extremely high, more so after COVID hit. We had a lot of individuals who did want to place themselves inside of nursing facilities. So we see a high turnover rate. And that's something that we meet with the higher ups on, who oversees that particular facility, to see what is the plan that they're putting in place to ensure that all residents are getting the quality of care that they deserve. Thirdly, not all facilities are resident focused. A lot of facilities, unfortunately, are money driven. At the end of the day, facilities, they are a business and they do have to operate, but the core fact and the core focus should always be on the resident. And unfortunately, that's not. So that's where we come into place to shift the narrative there, to let them know, hey, we understand this is a business, but this is also one life. This is someone's life, their dignity, their respect. So they need to be the focus of this. And there's a huge violation of the residents' rights. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the staffing inside of facilities are not familiar with the residents' rights, which I feel is rather ridiculous. But nevertheless, that's where we come in to educate them on the residents' rights. We tell them, what they need to abide by, the ramifications around not doing so, uh, and then also a lack of understanding of the ombudsman role in impeding on investigations. So a lot of times family members will call us, give us a complaint or concern that they may have with a family member, but not fully understanding that the ombudsman can only operate off of consent. And so if that resident is their own responsible party, and let's just say they wasn't and they had a power of attorney, which is a legal document, they still have a voice. And so we have to go off what they say. So although a family member may call and they may do a follow up, we are not required to pour out that information to that individual on that follow up unless we got that consent from that resident. And also, multiple changes and guidelines due to the pandemic. So the challenges that we have is everyone is not educated. Um, CCLD and Department of Public Health, and also the state that we work very closely with, they change PINs, which are rules and regulations on a regular basis. And so it's our role to make all facility staff privy of this, and also the residents privy of this, the changes that has gone under. Next slide, please. So partnership, we like to have every individual understand the role of the ombudsman. We like to partner and let them know the willingness to work through systematic issues. We're open to trainings that's provided by us. So we go into a lot of skilled nursing facilities, RCFEs, and even outside agencies in the community, just to let them know that the ombudsman is here, that the ombudsman is present. So we do a lot of in-services is what we call them. We also like to go in and correct the errors and care issues that may decrease. So we're going in, we're finding out what the issues of care is. What are something that you guys as a facility is struggling with so that we can either guide you to the proper resource to fix it or give you the law and the residents' rights aspect to correct that. We also like supportive residents and family councils. We like to partner with families. Sometimes you'll have families who want to come together and create a council meeting. And we like to be a part of that. So if we get someone of interest, we spearhead that for you guys. We'll say, hey, well, let's do something that accommodates to everybody's time, where we can really discuss where this facility is going. So I really appreciate those. And we like to educate everybody on the residents' rights. That's what we do on a regular basis. A lot of our phone calls are based off of educating individuals on the rights of the residents. Next slide, please. So our PowerPoint, we like to say we are always looking for volunteers. If you know anybody who is interested in becoming a volunteer, they can always go back to this PowerPoint and scan this QR code here that is always active, or my contact information will be given out to all of you wonderful people here today to contact me. And we can set up something if you want to get out into the community, and whether that to be a part of our friendly visiting program, to just sit and have conversation with a lot of our residents who desire that. And unfortunately, based off the severity of our work, we don't always have the time to sit for hours, but we want to get the issue fixed. So we depend on people like you all who are here today and have family members and friends to partake in this. I know that a lot of questions may need to be asked, and I look forward to answering whatever question you guys may have towards the end of this. So thank you for your time, and I'm appreciative for being here from Empowered Agent. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kev. I've noticed in the chat that people were saying they were having some trouble getting in, and if you would be, if they'd be able to get a copy of your
Absolutely.
slide. Okay.
Absolutely. That is something I definitely could do.
And if you missed it, what we're doing is the two presenters are going to present their information first, and then we'll be following up with the questions at the end. So if you have, when we take the questions, you can just type them in the chat and I can put them across the screen for you, okay? So just hold on. Thanks so much, Kev. I'm going to bring Sally up now.
Absolutely.
Sally Westlake. She's going to be talking about financial abuse.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to join you here today. Again, my name is Sally Westlake, and I am the Targeted Outreach Specialist with DFPI. My geographic territory is Southern California, and I also cover the older adult demographic in all of California. So today, I want to share with you who we are, what we do at the DFPI, and talk about what is elder financial exploitation, what signs to look out for, how to protect yourself and loved ones, and if you are a victim of financial fraud or exploitation, where do you go to report it? You or someone you know could become the victim of a growing crime in America: financial exploitation of older Americans. Criminals are targeting people of all ages, and especially older people of exploitation. As people over 50 years old hold most of the nation's wealth, fraudsters are using new tactics to take advantage of retiring baby boomers and the growing number of older Americans. Next slide, please. So, the Department of Financial Protection Innovation, or DFPI, and formerly the Department of Business Oversight, we regulate state licensed financial institutions, products, and professionals in order to provide public accessibility to a fair and secure financial services marketplace. We serve the state by enforcing the state's financial service laws and providing resources to Californians to make them informed, be able to make informed financial decisions. As part of our mission, we strive to help consumers protect their personal finances from fraud. We support the financial services industry through effective regulation and promoting fair and honest business practices to maintain consumer trust and confidence in an array of financial services, products, and professionals. Next slide, please. Now, here's a list of some of the institutions, service providers, and professionals we either regulate, license, or oversee. And they include state chartered banks and credit unions, your residential mortgage loan originators or servicers, California finance lenders, PACE administrators, your escrow agents, payday loans, money transmitters like PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, investment advisors, broker dealers, franchises, debt collectors, credit repair agencies, consumer credit reporting companies, and more. Now, before you do business with a new financial institution or professionals, please check your license to make sure that they're in good standing. For a full list of our licensees and industries regulated by the DFPI, please visit our website at dfpi.c.gov or call our toll free number at 866 275 2677. You can also file a complaint by visiting our website or calling our toll free number. Next slide, please. Elder financial exploitation is the fastest growing form of elder abuse and is defined as the illegal, unauthorized, or improper use of an older person's funds, property, or assets. It's a crime that deprives older adults of their resources and ultimately their independence. Financial elder abuse can cross all social, educational, and economic boundaries, and the perpetrators can be family members, caregivers, friends, neighbors, or acquaintances, persons with power of attorney, financial advisors, or persons known or even unknown to the senior. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So, some common examples of elder financial exploitation include grandparent imposter scams. Here, we encourage our families to set up maybe a family safe word or a phrase to protect themselves. There's also fake charity scams, fake tax and debt collection scams. It's important to note that government agents will not call you out of the blue. They will not threaten you over the phone for payment, and they will not take payment over the phone. There's also telemarketer, mail offer, or salesperson scams. Next slide, please. We're looking at also investment and fraud scams, including pig butchering, wrong text message, or fake cryptocurrency investment scams, where they ask you to download an app and promise you big returns. But when you want to withdraw your money from the account, they want you to pay fees, pay taxes before you can actually take out your money. When the scammers feel that they've taken you for all that they can, poof, the account is frozen, the app no longer works, the phone number doesn't work, and the scammers have disappeared. A couple I met in Thousand Oaks recently lost over $250,000 to this investment scam. Unfortunately, it's very hard to recover your funds once it's gone. Most of these scams are perpetrated by criminal rings in foreign countries where we have no jurisdiction. There's also lottery and sweepstakes scams. Recently, I also met a lady in Palm Springs who thought she won a Tesla from Elon Musk by entering a lottery through Facebook. She had paid $1,500 in taxes and was actually waiting for the Tesla to be delivered later that afternoon to her home. No legitimate lottery or sweepstakes is going to ask you to pay fees for you to collect the winnings. There's also theft of money or property by family members, caregivers, or even in home helpers, and exploitation by agents under POA, power of attorney, or even persons in another fiduciary response relationship. Next slide, please. So now let's take a look at some of the warning signs of financial exploitation. You're looking for unusual financial activity where some money or property is missing. You may see significant transfers of assets, substantial loans or gifts to others, maybe sudden changes in Roberto's spending or savings, unauthorized use of credit cards, ATM or debit cards, or even checkbooks. Roberto says he's afraid or seems afraid of a relative, caregiver, or friend. Suspicious activities you may notice, people at his home, new friends or helpers. You might also notice a decline of his physical and emotional well being. A relative, caregiver, friend, or someone else keeps Roberto isolated, does not let him speak for himself, or seems to be controlling his decisions. And you may also notice some mobility or frailty issues or cognitive decline or loss of financial acumen. Next slide, please. So, what should you do to protect yourself? And these are some tips for our seniors. You want to plan ahead to protect your assets and to ensure your wishes are followed. Consider a financial caregiver. Shred receipts, bank statements, and unused credit card offers before throwing them away. Lock up your checkbook, account statements, and other sensitive information when others will be in your home. Regularly review your credit report. Never give personal information, including social security number, account number, or other financial information to anyone over the phone unless you initiated the call and you trust who's on the other end of that phone call. Never pay a fee or taxes to collect sweepstakes or lottery winnings. Never rush into a financial decision. Ask for details in writing and get a second opinion. You want to consult with a financial advisor or attorney before signing any document you don't understand. Get to know your banker and build a relationship with people who handle your finances. They can look out for any suspicious activity related to your account. Check references and credentials before hiring anyone. Don't allow workers to have access to information about your finances. You want to pay with credit cards instead of cash so that you have a paper trail. You have the right not to be threatened or intimidated. If you think someone close to you is trying to take control of your finances, call your local adult protective services and tell someone at your bank. Trust your instincts. Exploiters often are very skilled. They can be charming and forceful in their effort to convince you to give up control of your finances. Don't be fooled. If something doesn't feel right, it may not be right. And again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Next slide, please. What should you do if you or someone you love is a victim of financial exploitation? Talk to a trusted family member or a friend. Tell your bank. In this case, time is of the essence. If you wired money to a scammer, there may be a chance to stop it if you notify the bank within 48 to 72 hours. You want to report it to us at dfpi.ca.gov and file a complaint. You also want to report it to your local law enforcement, and you want to make sure you obtain a report number, because you're going to need that report number to if you're going to report fraud and scams to the FTC and then to the FBI. Again, you want to file a report with the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov. And if it's a cyber or internet crime, you will then report it to the FBI's Internet Crime Center at www.ic3.gov. Next slide, please. If you or someone you know 60 years or older has been a victim of fraud, you can also call the National Elder Fraud Hotline for assistance. This was created by the Department of Justice to help our older adults be able to report fraud. If you're a victim and you don't know where to go for assistance and maybe overwhelmed on reporting and may not be tech savvy and are not able to report the fraud online, when you call that number, they can help you actually report it to the FTC and to the FBI, or get you further assistance that you may need. Thank you again for your time, everyone. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Deb.
And here we go. Let's add everybody back in. Hey, Kim. Thank you so much, Sally. That was excellent. Yes, the copy of the PowerPoints will be sent to everyone who registered for the event. We already have your email address. So yeah, don't worry about that part. So now we're going to be taking questions. Let me scroll because I saw a couple already that I thought were interesting. Okay, here's one. If the resident has a conservator, that conservator can consent for the resident, correct? Oftentimes, I guess you mean the residents don't really understand what's going on.
So let me see. The resident has a conservator. The conservator can consent for the resident, right? Oftentimes they do. That is correct. So if they do have a conservator, which oftentimes we see the conservator comes through the public guardian department here in Alameda County, they do have say-so to answer for the resident, for that is their role. But oftentimes there's not really a relationship, and that's something that's a systematic issue that we're trying to work through. So it's not a lot of relationship built. So a lot of the times we're calling the conservator to try to get in contact them to adhere to the concern of the resident.
Okay, next question. Who has oversight of unlicensed care homes?
So that's a great question, and oftentimes we get that a lot. So it really depends on what type of service was that unlicensed facility operating under. So if they were a 6-bed with only 6 residents there, that would be an RCFE, will fall under that category. So their licensing party will be community care licensing. Or if they were a bigger facility, more than likely it would be a SNF, which will be Department of Public Health. So it depends. But if you see an unlicensed facility that is operating, please contact the Ombudsman Department immediately, for we do need to report that to the licensing party and pay that facility a visit.
Okay, next question. Marjorie asks, how specifically does DFPI assist older adults with investment scams or other financial exploitation? Do they collect data available for review by DA offices and local police departments? What generally happens after one reports to DFPI?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And it's, let me make sure I cover everything. So how do we assist older adults with investment scams or other financial exploitation? We are going to try to see if we can help them retrieve their money back, right? That's the ultimate goal. How do we assist our older adults from an investment scam? So first of all, it's a unlicensed, let's say, investment advisor. We may pull their license. Then we are going to go to the DA's office and to help file a formal complaint with them so that we can go after the investment advisor to help the person get their money back. If you report up with us, we are also not only collecting data, but you will get a response directly from us. But then we're also going to want you to go to your local police department, get that report number, file a report with the FBI and then the FTC as well. Now, FBI and the FTC will just, for the most part, will be gathering data, also looking to see if there's someone at the other end that they can go after. So that's our ultimate goal, is shutting down, could be investment, criminal rings. But lots of times, unfortunately, it is a criminal ring, again, out of our jurisdiction. But if we can find patterns in fraud and that type of scam, that gives us a better case to build on, so that hopefully, you may not get all of your money back, but maybe some of your money back.
We have another question I think is probably best directed to you, from Catherine. She says, I reported my home helper to police, and they did not care about her stealing from me. They said it was her word against mine, even though I had proof. In a situation like that, Sally, does a person have any other recourse other than just accepting it? Is there any next level above the police department?
Yes. So unfortunately, again, depending on your local law enforcement, they may or may not be able to assist you. But let's say you have proof that she was stealing from your bank account. How was she doing that? Was she using the ATM card? Was she forging your signature on your checks? Then what we want to do is we want to assist her and file a complaint and go to the bank directly and report these fraud charges, because that's the only way the bank is going to, potentially refund the money, is showing that it was proof and that it was theft.
Here's the next question. Are trends of older adults getting financially exploited going up or down?
It's going up. It's going up. Okay. According to the FBI's Internet Crime Report, Americans over the age of 60 lost $3.4 billion to fraud in 2023. That was an increase from the year before. And we know on average that 1 in 44 older adults actually report fraud, that they've been a victim of fraud. So that is a very low number. And we know from year to date this year, it's trending much higher than we did the year before.
And if I may chime in on that, also from the ombudsman perspective, just recently, we have a facility here in Alameda County that the elders in that facility has lost roughly, together out of 12 residents, $300,000. And this is from one facility, you all. And so these scammers, they're coming to the facilities. They're also using AI technology and voice analysis to find these residents' family members who may have younger adults who have YouTube channel and TikTok accounts, and they're using AI to record their voices. And so then after they record the voice, they call that resident and say, well, hey, grandma, I'm stuck here in Mexico. I wanted to see if you can send me, $3,000 to get back home. So of course she does that, and she's scammed out of that money. So this is something that we're seeing also as well, Sally, here as the ombudsman.
Yes, it's happening all across California,
Yeah.
where, like you said, they're using AI technology, and actually takes only 3 words to be able to duplicate voices.
Yeah.
And we've actually had a case where mother answers the call and thinks her daughter has been kidnapped. And the mother can't even tell that that was a duplicated voice and that was not her actual daughter's voice. And that's when I talk about the grandparent relative, that family members should create a safe word or phrase. So if you get a call from, your grandson that's saying that they're in Mexico, right, needing bail money or money to come home, you ask maybe the fake policeman that answers the call and say, okay, so what's our family safe word, right? They should be able to tell you what that is. Just a little protection to keep us safe.
I like that. Here we go. Well, Janine is asking a question that you already addressed, but I think she wasn't here. So if you could just repeat that information, other people may have missed it as well.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So if we were suspect that a place is unlicensed, we'll report it to you. Yeah, so I just stated that. So if you have any suspicion of an unlicensed facility. So typically, if it's a bigger facility and you see more than 6 residents there, chances are it's a skilled nursing facility. So that licensing party would be the Department of Public Health. And if you see a smaller facility where you see individuals in there who are a little more proactive and they can do a little more on their own, typically that's a residential care facility. And their licensing party would be community care licensing. But as I stated, if you find any suspicion that they are unlicensed and they are caring for any type of elderly, please give us a phone call and we need to adhere to that immediately.
All right. There's another one, Bud.
Mhm.
And we have one coming up for you, Sally. Marilyn asking, how can I get an ombudsman help for my mom's voice for her care wants? She lives in her home. She's bedridden with a stroke. She's on hospice and dementia. My brother, her son, holds all powers, and I'm unable to help her with her wishes. Is there any hope?
Absolutely. So I always want you to hold on to the hope. There's always a solution. Is it easy? Probably not, but there is a solution. So unfortunately, us as the ombudsman, that's outside of our jurisdiction if your mother is in her home. So if mom is in a home, then the reporting party that you would go to is APS, Adult Protective Services, where they have jurisdiction to do home visits and do a thorough investigation as we would do. But being that mom is in a home, that would be your reporting party. So I highly recommend that you get in contact with them. They're pretty responsive, and they'll guide you through that process for sure.
Okay. Another question about the political request from Kim. Apologies if you covered this during the time I couldn't access the program, but what about political text? I keep getting them from candidates I supported, but I keep thinking, how do I know who this is really from?
Okay, so I can address that question. Thank you very much. That's a great point. So we get unwanted, unsolicited texts all the time, right? From USPS saying they're going to deliver a package that you were not expecting, but they need to verify your address. And if you look at the actual link, it isn't coming from USPS. It's coming from an address like xyz245.com/China, right? From foreign countries. So those are type of texts you want to just delete. You are not going to engage. Unfortunately, some of our older adults who are so nice, that generation, they want to respond to these texts, unsolicited texts, and say, oh, you have the wrong number. Oh, I don't have a package coming. That's the wrong thing to do. These scammers are very good at what they do. All you want to do is delete, delete, delete. And of course, during our election time, I also got a lot of political text messages and calls. And yes, from some people that I supported as well. But all you're going to do is either delete or put a stop when it is from a political text. But if it is from an unsolicited business type, you do not want to even put stop on the text message, on the respond text message, because that will let the scammers know that that phone number is a good number, that there is a real person at the end of it. You just want to delete, 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 and don't engage.
There's another question here for you, Kim. I mean, Sally, I'm sorry. From Marjorie. In a scammer fraud, the older adults click on a website, which we just discussed, that looks like it's by gold bars. Does the FBI assign that older adult a representative to work with them?
So older adult click on a website that looks like a solid provide. Does the FBI assign the older adult a representative? So we actually, that's not how our process works, because we're a regulatory authority, more than kind of an assisting type of an agency. What we do is we will take your formal complaint against that business, institution, or provider that may have committed fraud. And so we will go after that person or entity. What we can't do is, assign a person, a coordinator directly to walk you through that process, to assist you with that. If you are looking for more of a handholding, that's when you want to call the National Elder Fraud Hotline that I mentioned.
It'll be on her slide deck for those of you who are interested. So we'll be sending that out after the webinar has concluded. Question from Kevin. Do any of these organizations work in conjunction with IHSS? That's in-home support services for those who are not familiar with the acronym.
So what I will say is we don't, as ombudsman, we don't work with them directly, but we do work with them in the sense of if a resident is safely being discharged home and needs some outside services such as IHSS, we will take the extra step to assure that the certain amount of services, hours needed to provide a certain level of care are being adhered to. So I think that's the biggest involvement that we have, but not directly, but more so indirectly.
Here's another one from Maria. I'm not in an institution, but I've suffered abuse for 3.5 years by a resident manager who finally locked me out, causing my brother and myself to be homeless. I am 66 now, he's 54, and my IHSS caregiver. Who should I report this abuse to?
All right. Well, what I would say is, let's see, you're not inside of a nursing facility. So you're not inside. Okay. So what you would do is I would recommend that you contact Adult Protective Services for one. And if you're also being physically abused, then also utilize 911 to report that physical abuse. And then also, let me say, I am 66 now. Am I? So I'm not sure if, so is the manager, what is the, I'm trying to figure out what the IHSS caregiver involvement
The
in that.
brother is the IHSS caregiver.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Um,
my brother.
got you. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's what I would do. I would utilize what we have. So I would call 911. I will report that. If you need to get a restraining order or anything of that sort, take any legal routes that you need. And also, we utilize a resource called Canner, and that's California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. So you can just type in the acronyms CANHR. They give you legal perspective as to what to do as a senior, and they can guide you properly from a legal perspective. And I'll put that information
One
in.
more question about unlicensed. He wants to know first, are unlicensed homes allowed to operate? And then this was the second question. If they're not, what are the options for people who can't afford a licensed facility?
That's a tough question, and we oftentimes see that. So what we would say is it really depends on the level of care that the individual may need. But let's get back to the licensed facility. So if they are operating and providing care to individuals and they're not licensed, that needs to be reported because potentially they need to be shut down. You cannot operate and not be licensed. And they said, if not, what are the options for people who can't afford a licensed facility? So like I said, it's contingent upon the level of care you need. They do have boarding cares that an individual can go to, but those more so highlight individuals who are a little more self-reliant. They could kind of take care of themselves, change themselves, feed themselves. And so you can always call a boarding care and enter yourself into there, readmit yourself into there. And if not, if you go to the hospital, say if you have some type of issue that you're having, the hospital social worker is always someone that you want to connect with, and then they can guide you properly to find something to accommodate to your needs.
All right, we have a few more minutes, everyone. Sally, I have one question for you about romance scams that seem to be really hitting the seniors hard.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any tips for how to smartly navigate the world of internet dating? Even if, I mean, I can see that as being a senior. If you're lonely, companionship, there's nothing wrong with that. But how can they do that safely?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, we understand everybody wants to have a partner, somebody who enjoys the same things that they do. And guess what? The scammers know that too. And so what they are looking for is it's not just one person, it's usually, again, a criminal ring. And they are trolling your social media accounts, anything on websites. They are looking for potential targets, and they're looking at, let's say, maybe you're widowed, recently widowed. Maybe you don't have kids living with you because on your social media, on your Facebook account, it may show that your family lives in a different state and you live alone. at your house. You might post, things about yourself, things that you like, going for long walks, reading, and your favorite vacation is Hawaii. And so these scammers are trolling, okay, to find out everything they can about you. And then what they do is they create a fake profile, right? A fake profile picture they could take off the internet of anybody. But again, that person, that fake profile picture is not going to be, you know, somebody really good, but somebody more in the average looking side, right? You can't be too good looking, you can't be too ugly, but somebody just that looks good enough. But they start to have the same interest as you. They start to profess their love for you too quickly. They might, oh, let's start talking on WhatsApp, going to different websites. They tell you, don't tell your family members about us. They say things like that. They may, start to say, oh, you know what? I'd love to meet you for lunch on Friday. When Friday rolls around, his car broke down, so he can't come to meet you. Unfortunately, he's not going to have money to repair his car until his next Social Security payment. So, as much as I want to, meet you, it's going to have to wait. So then a lot of our adults offer to loan the money. And we're not talking thousands of dollars. It usually starts off with a smaller amount where the senior citizen offers it and says, oh, I can loan you the $700 to fix your car. Just go ahead and pay me back when you get your next check. Sure, no problem. That's how it starts. They are testing the waters. But eventually, the money increases. They might have family members who need emergency surgery, right? They might need money to meet you in Hawaii. But eventually, that money increases. And I'm going to tell you about a story about a lady here who actually thought she was in a relationship or starting in a romantic relationship with a sitting U.S. senator.
Oh.
She gave him $100,000, not all at once, $100,000, but that wasn't enough. She took out a loan against her house for another $110,000. She was completely out of money when she figured out she needed to report it. It's actually when she reported to the FTC and the FBI, the Capitol Police actually called her because it was a scam against a U.S. senator, right? So, we kind of have to think about, okay, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? I don't know if you guys heard of two romance scam ladies out of South America who lost total of $350,000. They thought they were having a romantic relationship with Brad Pitt. Okay? So it happens to all of us. Again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If somebody asks you to keep it a secret, that's not a good sign. If somebody is asking for money who you've never met in person, red flag should be going off.
I had a friend, well, it's a neighbor, I call her friend too. They didn't ask for money, but what they did was ask for her to buy them things on Amazon.
Mm.
So they created like this wish list. Isn't that what it's called on wish list?
Uh-huh.
And so then they were having different, people buy these items, and not any of the items were not exceptionally expensive. So they were able to do a couple $100 at the most. But if you have, 200 people buying a couple $100 items, and then you're reselling them at flea markets or eBay or whatever, I thought, wow, this person is making a killing. This is just ridiculous. So that was a little scam I heard about personally. And someone wants to know something we kind of didn't really get the chance to touch on. If both of you could address some signs of self-neglect when someone is in their private residence. Oops, this one. Sorry, picked the wrong one. When they're in their private residence, say we're their neighbor, a family member, and we notice that things going wrong here. What kind of things should we be looking for to identify self-neglect?
Yeah, well, I think I can jump in and answer that. So I'll frame it more so from what I see inside of these facilities. So, You would think that individuals will be happy and grateful to receive the care, but they do suffer from depression and things of that sort, which is very serious. A lot of times their mental health is affected from having to be codependent on someone else. And so, what that looks like, the self neglect, that is the refusal of medication, the refusal of any hygiene regimens. They will slowly refuse that. Participating in physical therapy, activities, things of that sort. So, we see it all the time. And in our position, it's really nothing we can do but try to be a support and encourage them as best as we can to adhere to those things. Take your medication. You want to be better. You know, whether this is home or whether this is not home, we still want you to thrive. So it comes in different facets. It just depends on the individual.
Okay. Sally, you want to jump in there?
Sure. So self-neglect in the private home, I mean, it can be the result of financial exploitation. They've been a victim of financial fraud. They're embarrassed. They just lost their entire savings. They lost their children's inheritance, and they're too embarrassed to report it. Causes depression. They don't want to leave their home. I had a lady who said she didn't have money for groceries, so that after giving the scammer all her money, that she eventually had to tell her children, and they had to help her buy groceries. So look for signs. If you have a friend or a neighbor who used to go out 2, 3 times a week, you notice them, getting ready, going to the senior center for lunch, or taking walks, in the neighborhood, but all of a sudden they stopped. Check in on them, knock on their door, say hello. And then if you see any signs of neglect, even self-neglect in their home, just call APS, or in worst cases, you might want to call law enforcement directly, but you can report it to APS anonymously. That's the best thing you can do to help older adults.
All right. So either of you have any closing comments?
I
I'm
can
going to
go.
put your contact information up on the last slide.
Yeah,
You don't
I'll
have to worry about
go
that.
last.
All right. So, again, thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions, issues, or problems regarding any of our licensees, again, we regulate the financial service providers for the state of California. If you have any questions, call us at our toll-free number at 866-275-2677. We do presentations statewide about financial fraud and scams. You can visit our website and look for other events that we are participating at. And if you have any questions, again, give us a call or visit our website.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also for me, we are available all around the clock from 9 to 5, 5 days a week. And even over the weekends, we have a crisis line that we also operate off of. So you have access to us 7 days a week in some form or another. So we highly recommend that you guys check out our website at empoweredaging.org. Where you can get all of our updated information, direct contact to myself and anybody on my team, as well as our amazing intake department, who pretty much answers the phones for us if you are unable to reach us. So thank you so much for having us, and greatly appreciate it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you both so much. All right, people, let's wind this up. What I'd like to do is display uh, their contact information where you can find all of us. Sally Westlake from the DFPI, that's information there. You can take a screenshot of that um, so that you have her email address and phone number in the website for DFPI. Kiev Harris from Empowered Aging, that's the Ombudsman Services. He went into great detail about them checking out the licensed care facilities and how they operate and how you can make a report with them. And then the County of Alameda Area Agency on Aging, which has sponsored this event. You may reach us at 1-800-510-2020 or 510-577-3530 if you're just local and you don't want to use the 800 number. The website to find out more information about the services available through Senior Information Assistance and the Area Agency on Aging in general is aaa.acgov.org. You can also make suggestions there for future events that you'd like to see. This is the first in a series of webinars that will be sponsored by the Area Agency on Aging. We want to make our events meet the needs that you have. So please share your thoughts and let us know what it is that you want to learn about in the future, and we'll make it happen. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you real soon.